Yes, Jane, the offensive that the Ukrainians have conducted has been described by all the analysts as spectacular, and indeed it is. They've got hold of the whole of the Kharkiv region. The Russians have withdrawn. This will probably go down as the Battle of the Oskil River, because the Ukrainians were able to push the Russians up against the Oskil River around Kupiansk and then push them over the river in ways that the Russians can't do very much about. There's an old military principle, goes with all military thinking, whatever unit you're talking about, whether it's a platoon or a company or a battalion or a division, 2 up, 1 back. For every 2 units that are engaged in battle, you need 1 behind them in order to reinforce or to cover a withdrawal if things go wrong. The Ukrainians have put together certainly 2 equivalent divisions, 2 sets of forces that look like a division. One of them is involved in this area around Kharkiv, and the other one down in Kherson. So almost certainly there is a 3rd division that they're keeping back for reinforcement on the 2 up, 1 back principle. So the question is, what might they do with it now that they've got the Russians off balance? One possibility is that they would try to, as it were, get round the back of some of these Russian forces that took, for instance, Severodonetsk. The Russians spent 101 days conquering Severodonetsk, and it now looks as if some early moves are that the Ukrainians look as if they're trying to move possibly to the north of Severodonetsk, rather than trying to attack it across the river, come around the back of it and take it that way. That may or may not work out. They may try to actually just penetrate into the Donbass. Another possibility is that the Ukrainians might use their other area, their 1 back division, in effect, to drive southwards and literally get right to the coast, maybe to Mariupol or to Melitopol, and break up this Russian land bridge, the famous land bridge that has existed from the Donbass area right through to Crimea. That would be opening a 3rd front in the war, which would be very dramatic, but you can't bet against the Russians, the Ukrainians not doing that, because they are now, as we're dominating the agenda for what happens next. And in Kherson, down in the southwest, Kherson city itself is under threat. The Ukrainians have not made the same sort of inroads there as the dramatic ones they made up in the Kharkiv region. But nevertheless, they're moving around. Particularly, Tomya Balka is very important, because if they've taken Tomya Balka, and there are quite a lot of reports that they have, then they'll get round behind the Russians inside the city. And meanwhile, they're moving in on Kherson city. The 2 big objectives, of course, are Kherson city and Novokakhovka. There's a big dam at Novokakhovka, because that dams the Dnieper River, and there's a big hydroelectric power plant there, and that's quite important to all the supplies, some of the water and some of the electricity that goes to Crimea. This front is not moving as fast or as dramatically as the front up in Kharkiv, but what is happening behind the arrows, as it were, is just as important. And in the north, there are persistent reports that Russian forces are running short of ammunition, and that some of them, it is said, are trying to negotiate some local surrenders. That may or may not be true, but Ukrainian Southern Command are saying it's true, and a lot of other people are saying it's true. We'll see. There may be some dramatic developments in the southern front in the near future. Jane.
Michael, thanks very much.